Amazing performance from the defense today. The offense, guys, you mentioned, Mike, all that yardage. They played one quarter.
Welcome to Pond Lehocky. We've helped over 100,000 injured and disabled workers obtain benefits, as well as some of the biggest settlements in the state. If you've been injured at work, give Pond Lehocky a call.
And welcome to the Pond Lehocky Eagles postgame show. I'm Mike Missinelli with Derek Gunn and Seth Joyner on the set right now. Eagles win 24-8 and 400-plus yards of offense, 9 sacks, including Brandon Graham with 2.5 coming alive. A fun game to watch as they're dominant again, and the man who covered that game down in D.C. joins us right now, John McMullen. John, I don't know what to say, but they are clearly superior so far than anybody they've played.
Yeah, I mean, it might be time to admit this is a good football team. So, I'm still waiting for that test. They haven't had that test. Jacksonville, Doug Peterson next on the docket. They look a little bit better than expected, but look, this team is really, really talented. And, Seth and I talked about the pass rush. Here we go, the pass rush. Washington was up against it playing a backup center, and all of a sudden they got 9 sacks against Carson Wentz. And that's how you beat Carson Wentz. We saw it. There's a guy who's going to hold on to the football. Amazing performance from the defense today. The offense, guys, you mentioned, Mike, all that yardage. They played one quarter. They didn't, it was that short burst and explosion in the second quarter. You look up and the game's over. That's how quick it happens with this team.
Hey, John, I think we have to give Shane Steichen an awful lot of credit because initially we saw the Eagles offense struggle a little bit the first 2 series against this Washington defense. Obviously, they were trying to figure some things out. But it didn't take Shane long to identify that Devontae Smith had the advantage that they were looking for to open things up. And wow, did he deliver for them today.
Yeah, he did. Devontae had a career high in receiving yards by halftime. So he had already hit that number, had the best first half since Kevin Curtis, I think, back in, you got to go back to 2007, I think it was. But, ended up with 169, eight receptions, career highs. Every week, that's the beauty of this offense is every week it can be somebody else. It might be A.J. Brown. AJ was great today. Didn't have the explosive numbers, but man, he just makes 50-50 balls 70-30 in your way. He's such a great receiver. Dallas Goedert's one of the best tight ends. You saw the tight end screen. They even got Grant Calcaterra involved. His first NFL catch goes for 40 yards. So this offense is very explosive. The Eagles constantly talk about explosive plays. Nick Sirianni mentioned it 3 times in his post-game press conference. Those are the 2 stats they point to, explosive plays and turnovers. They didn't turn the football over, and they just had a ton of explosive plays. And they're going to not only win football games when they do that, they dominate football games when they do that.
John, explosive plays, you got to have them, and it's a big deal when you really stop and you think about it. To your point, Nick Sirianni has talked about it. We see it on this football team. The thing is, I scratched up this crazy stat that, the Eagles, they scored 24 points in the second quarter today. That's all the points that they scored. They scored 17 points in the second quarter against Minnesota, and they only managed to score 7 more points after that. In the first game against the Detroit Lions, they scored 24 to 38 points in the second quarter. I just, and listen, happy for the win, proud of how they played, excited about the future. But at some point in time, they're going to have to figure out how to play an entire game. And it's one thing to be explosive in the second quarter, but can you be explosive down the stretch when you really need to be explosive?
Yeah, look, they're going to be tested at some point, and I've said that pretty consistently as well, Seth. I don't know what is coming. I know it hasn't come yet, and they've been able to dominate the teams that they played. except Detroit, where they kind of took the foot off the gas, and they kind of escaped with that win. But Minnesota, I felt very comfortable that if they needed to score in the second half, they could have scored. Nick Sirianni blamed himself. Today he said it was a little bit different. They didn't necessarily take the foot off the gas. They weren't as successful as they wanted to be. But, I think they took the foot off the gas. I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, the defense didn't, but I think the offense did. It's nitpicking at this point, though, because they've dominated the competition put in front of them.
No, I don't think it's nitpicking. People are going to say, oh, these guys never are satisfied, with the outcome when the Eagles win. I'm looking down the road because I said it last week. I'll say it again. I've always said it. The way that you win is as important as if you don't win. So at some point in time, things always balance themselves out. There's this balancing effect in football that always happens. There's going to be a game where they're not going to be as explosive as they want to be for whatever reason. It might be a matchup. It might be, a coaching deal, whatever it is. If you have an opportunity to blow the scoreboard up, then blow the scoreboard up. When you look at teams like, Kansas City, when they're in their groove, they don't take the foot off the pedal, because it's so much harder to put the gas 100% down, let up on it, and then put your foot back on the gas again and get everything going again than it is to just keep the pedal to the metal at all times. Even on the defensive side of the ball, keep coming, keep the pressure on. Do not let Carson Wentz, even though you already sacked him 9 times, sack him 9 more times because you got to play him again.
Yeah, maybe by that point you want to, but especially if he gets sacked 9 times a game. But they took it. Look, I think you're right, Seth. I mean, at some point, I keep saying it, and they haven't been tested yet. I thought they would be tested today. They did have some problems with Jonathan Allen up front. They had some problems with Deron Payne. Nick Sirianni talked about how much respect he has for those players and Montez Sweat. The Eagles typically run the ball at will, right? They couldn't run the ball today. They ran for, I'm looking it up right now, 72 yards. Yeah. That's not a typical Philadelphia Eagles performance under Nick Sirianni. So they had trouble running the football, and that made them more pass dependent. And they made a lot of plays down the field. You had the 45-yard catch that might have not been a catch to Devontae Smith. You guys probably saw that better than me because I'm at FedEx Field. The TVs don't work. Nothing works here. So you guys probably have a better view if that foot actually came down that second foot. But
he was out.
I know Ron Rivera wanted to challenge that play, didn't get the information quick enough, wasn't able to challenge it. So I give the Eagles credit for getting up and running another play. But you had a 44-yard pass to Devontae as well. You had a 40-yarder to Grant Calcaterra, as I mentioned. You had a deep ball to A.J. Brown. These explosive plays stressed the defense. And I got news for you guys. Washington came out a house ablaze defensively in the first quarter, and then it's just wearing on them. Their offense couldn't move the ball. All of a sudden, the Eagles get a field goal. Then they get to turn over the short field. It's 10-0. Essentially, the game's over at that point. But you saw it for that first 10 minutes or so. Washington was playing well defensively. Jalen Hurts started 1 of 5 after completing 84% of his passes on Monday night. It is coming. I can't tell you when, but they will be challenged more over a 60-minute time period. Yes. But right now, you got to give this team credit. They're deep. They're talented. They can beat you a whole host of ways. And a quarterback is playing great.
John, first of all, I know Ron Rivera didn't get the information in quick enough, but I wonder if anybody on the Commander's sidelines has eyeballs. Do you have to get somebody to call for it? Can't you just witness that? But here's the point I want to make, and I want to get your opinion of what Carson Wentz is right now. They existed, the Eagles, pretty much 4-man front. They were getting pressure on him. And, so he didn't have – I get it. But you look at the guy and all, the stuff that haunted us with Carson Wentz, the quarterback here, holding on to the ball too long, not securing the ball when he's trying to wriggle out of there. The same warts all the time. And I just wonder kind of quarterback you think he is right now?
Oh, that's a good question, Mike. What the quarterback I saw today is not a good quarterback. And, the Eagles kind of talk behind the scenes a little bit. If we hit this guy early, they know better than anybody. He's going to fall apart. Now, you could say that about most quarterbacks. If you hit them early, they're going to get uncomfortable. I mean, that's how the Giants beat Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. Pressure right up the middle. So the greatest of all time had that problem. But it's a little bit more exacerbated with Carson Wentz. He holds on to the football too long. We know that from watching him in Philadelphia. He doesn't protect the football when he holds the football. You had the 2 strip sacks. One the Eagles were able to get and created that short field. When he plays like this, you start to think, all right, this is his last chance to be a starting quarterback in this league. If he continues to play like this, he's not going to be a starting quarterback in this league.
Hey, John, by no stretch of the imagination are we going to diminish the defensive effort from this Eagles defense today, but just how atrocious was that Washington offensive line? That from the tackles, that was some of the worst tackle play I've seen in quite some time.
Yeah, and especially coming off Penei Sewell and Taylor Decker and Brian O'Neill. Yeah. I mentioned that in the pregame show. They were going to have a little bit of a breather this week with Sam Cosmi and Charles Leno. But I think the big issue was Wes Schweitzer at center.
Yep.
And you saw straight up Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave early in the game, just right up the middle. Incredible pressure. And he's their backup. Chase Rule, he's on injured reserve. He's a really good center. That probably would have made a difference. But everybody's got injuries in this league. You have to do a better job than Washington did. I think the big issue was Wes Schweitzer. And the Eagles took advantage of it. They deserve credit. By the way, on the defensive side, William Jackson wasn't able to play, and they had to play Rashad Wildgoose. And the Eagles identified that, and they were able to get 2 big PIs on him, big chunk PIs too, with Quez Watkins. So I give this coaching staff credit for identifying weaknesses and exploiting them.
John, let me ask you a question. You address the defense, you address the offense. My biggest question on this Eagles football team, again, is the return game and special teams. You saw Devontae Smith come out and take the second punt return, got some positive yards, and then you watch Britton and Colby just get beat up and hammered. He
got beat up.
It's like, we're sitting there in the green room watching this, and I'm like, is anybody going to block for this kid? Now, I get it. He's not a 4-3 guy or a 4-4 guy with a whole lot of shake. He's going to make one move, and he's going to get up the field. You got this little kid back here, doing the best that he can. And when you get tackled by 6 defenders, and all of the guys on your team is supposed to be helping blocking those guys, they come running to the pile afterwards. This is a problem, because I told D Gunn, I was like, I'm either cussing out the guys that's supposed to be blocking for me, or I'm going to tell the special teams coach, hey, every single time they punt, I'm just going to fair catch it. But I'm not going to sit back here and get my ass handed to me, and these guys aren't doing their job. And then I tweeted out, I'm like, Nick needs to, cut one of these special teams guys and put 2 more on the practice squad to send a message. Because you know what? You're getting paid to do a job. And that guy should not be taking the kind of punishment that he's taking when guys just aren't blocking and getting in front of the guys that they're supposed to be getting in front of.
No, I think I talked about that a lot. That's been an underreported problem with this team, really dating back to last season. The kickoff, both punt return, coverage as well. The Eagles lose the field position battle a little bit too much. And, when you erase that with your offense, maybe you kind of, fall asleep a little bit. I don't want to say completely fall asleep, but it becomes a bit of a lull, and you say, well, maybe that it's not that important. And Nick Sirianni kind of did that leading up to this game, and I was a little surprised. But, with Britton, you hit the nail on the head. He's not an explosive guy. You saw that when the Eagles had Washington backed up and they had a chance for a return, they put Devontae Smith out there because they wanted the explosive ability to say, all right, we can get a return. When it's a typical punt where they're trying to pin you back, they put Kobe back there because he's very short-handed. Even though he muffed one today, typically he's very short-handed. That's sort of their mentality of it. But yeah, they don't have any explosion, and that poor kid got beat up. I do give him credit, though, because I talked to him. He doesn't like punt returners who fair catch because he thinks they do that to pad their stats. And he says, if I can get a yard or 2 yards, it's better than taking a fair catch. So he's really tough, but he's really small, and he's getting beat up.
John, quick thing, and we get out of here. Any injury updates from the locker room? I know Goddard was banged up a little bit in the shin. Do we have any updates on the situation?
No, Dallas was back in the game, so he was able to return. So he wasn't. Milt Williams was a little scary. He was down. He went in the injury tent, but he came back in the game. Darius Slay very early got banged up, but he was his typical stealth in the locker room. So it's another part of it. They've been very healthy so far, and that's part of the success as well.
All right, John, thank you. Another Eagles win. We'll see what next week brings, and then Arizona. So maybe they get the test in the next 2 weeks. Thanks a lot, John. We'll talk to you.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right, that's John McMullen live from Landover, Maryland. So let me get this straight. You're telling me that Britton Covey can go up to a special teams coach and go, listen, man, if you're not going to block for me, I'm just going to fair catch it and get away with it? They'll say, son, you better take your ass back to Utah. There's no way he's got that kind of clout.
Maybe, but how much more of that punishment do you think he can take?
Oh, I get it.
Whether he makes a decision to just wave his hand against the return, but if I'm in his shoes, yeah, I'm trying to make the team. I'm trying to, maintain a job. But at the same time, it's hard for me to do my job when everybody else ain't doing their damn job. And you want me to risk my neck back there running those kicks back. And, I mean, listen, I seen one on one of his punt returns, Mike. He catches the ball. He's trying to make something happen. He hits it up. I mean, you can't do a whole lot of dancing. We want him to just hit a hole. I mean, he gets swarmed by like 5, 6, 7 guys. And then all the guys that are supposed to be blocking those guys, here they come jogging to the pile. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. You're supposed to get in front of this guy and stay in front of him and dog him all the way down the field. Not block him twice at the line of scrimmage and release him and let him go down and knock your punt return out who's trying to get some positive field position, man.
Well, another part of the problem is, too, that Kobe has to do a better job of protecting his body. He's too upright when he's returning the ball upfield. And you look at a couple of shots, this kid's going to end up with a chest contusion or fractured ribs when you consider he's basically an open target. Most ball carriers, what do? Get low, brace yourself. When you feel the pressure converging, what do? He's standing up like a stop sign and just taking shots at him.
I get it. I know the one you're talking about.
Yes,
he was
there's
two
of them.
He was a little bit off balance because he's trying to make one guy miss, and as he's trying to make one guy miss and he's stumbling a little bit, he's standing straight up. Well, you know what? If they would just block some damn body, he wouldn't have to go through all them machinations.
I'm just saying, I can picture Britton Covey going in, stomping around, going, I ain't gonna stand for no banana, no tailpipe, right? that's not gonna happen.
Hey, if you don't protect yourself, who is?
Who will? Exactly.
I
Okay.
get it. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back. It is the Pond Lehocky Eagles postgame show. We're live at Ocean Casino. Back into this.